Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Thanks for joining us on Monday afternoon. My name's Toby Earle. I'm an entertainment reporter at London Live, and I'm joined today for this masterclass by someone who I don't think is an not underestimating or understating this. Someone who has worked on some of the biggest light entertainment TV shows this country has ever seen. Someone who has worked on programmes which have sculpted those Saturday night TV schedules. The Saturday night TV schedules, the ones where the shows are really in big, thick, bold letters, the ones that really pop up from the page. If I read it out, it's kind of ridiculous. Currently working on Take Me Out, about to go into a 9th series, worked on Over the Rainbow, multiple National Lottery shows, Hole in the Wall, and all the way through to Top of the Pops and Noel's House Party. We are very honoured this afternoon to be joined by Suzy Lamb, Head of Entertainment at Thames.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you for all those programmes. Because I was looking through your resume, as Lord Sugar might say, and it is quite astonishing the number of programmes which have dominated Saturday night TV, and those shows are ones that you have worked on. Should we start at the beginning though, as opposed to starting at the end where we are right now? How did you get into television? How did you first find that foothold in that sheer rock face of the TV industry?
I think to start at the very beginning is a very good place to start, which comes on to another show that I worked on further into my career. But for me, I started at the BBC as a production secretary, straight into the entertainment department, which at the time there were only a handful of places where you could work. There weren't independent companies. There was the BBC, there was ITV, there was probably Carlton, Granada, and all of the other regional television stations. But for me, it was a place to work. You can probably tell by this accent, I'm a born and bred Londoner who always had a passion for telly. And it was something that I always really wanted to do. I was in the Brownies, and we did all sorts of like singing and dancing. It was that kind of brownie pack. And I just always loved entertainment. So it just felt like the natural fit for me.
Well, I mean, the Brownies experience is invaluable, of course, for later in your career, working on How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria and those other great big shows on Saturday night. I mean, early doors there, you're already kind of being influenced and sort of having your inspirations pushed along. But, I mean, when you say about sort of getting into TV, I mean, now, I'm not saying it's easy, far from that, but people can find out people's email addresses and whatnot, and they can kind of contact people directly. How did you happen to find yourself working as a production secretary on, I mean, some of the shows I could name, Top of the Pops, Noel's House Party, all those kind of programmes?
Well, I started, again, I was a local girl. I'm from West London, and the BBC was one of the biggest employers around. And I just really believed that that's what I wanted to do. So I talked to different people. Bizarrely, I had a Saturday job in Marks and Spencer's, which was based really near to the BBC, and I just thought one day I'm going to work in that big circular building, that big donut, as they used to call the BBC. And I just kept pursuing it until I got in. I did a clerical job, and then this advert came up in a local, the BBC magazine, which is called Ariel. I don't know if you know it still exists, where you could apply for jobs, and that's exactly what I did. I went through the process, and I applied to be the production secretary on Bob Says Opportunity Knocks, which is, you're probably all too young to remember it, but I worked on it. And at the time, it was like the reincarnation of the talent show. So there had been shows way back in the 70s called Opportunity Knocks and New Faces, and this was the new incarnation of the talent show, which now when I look at talent shows, it feels crazy to think that that was the new thing, and now you've got all of these different performance shows that are on the screens.
I mean, Bob Monkhouse didn't fly you or anyone else out to judges' houses. There was none of that. No X's above the stage.
No, none of that
soap
stuff.
Operas.
It was a pure talent show where you had that weekly vote off, but they had this thing in the audience called I'm really showing my age now, but called the clapometer. For those of you that remember that, and that's how they voted.
Clap if you think a clapometer is an excellent idea and should be reintroduced to TV, and maybe even here.
doesn't make you any money, though, that's the thing.
Clap if you think you should be charged to applaud. That's maverick.
Okay.
And that'll
I'm going
be
to use
£5.
that for my next format.
I was going to say, if you want to bring the clapometer back, then please do. So, I mean, that is perseverance then. That is actually sort of having a dream and sort of not sort of putting up with anything else and working in a way you have to work to make some money, of course,
Yeah.
but never letting go.
Yeah.
Could you sort of talk about the Beeb at that time, what it was like to work in an organisation, which I think we all do take for granted now, and sometimes it comes under attack for various things. You know, the Cookie Monster wears a poppy, okay. But what was it like to work at the BBC in that era when TV was at the heart of everyone's lives?
It was absolutely amazing. I only ever worked on, to your point earlier on, big Saturday night shows. There weren't spin-off shows that we have now. There weren't the digital channels. So everything I did, I was in that real fortunate time, was a big show, whether it was working with Paul Daniels on his big magic show, which was the biggest magic show of its time, or working with Russ Abbott on comedy sketch shows, or what you mentioned earlier on, Alexi Self-Staff, and something I worked on, the Mary Whitehouse experience for years and years in my career, made me like the coolest girl. Everyone used to come up and say, "Are you the girl that worked on the Mary Whitehouse experience?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was me." And now nobody's ever heard of the Mary Whitehouse experience, so it makes me realise how long I've worked in telly.
Do you get residuals if people now Google for the Mary Whitehouse experience and bring up the YouTube videos?
No, sadly not, but I missed out there,
That's a
didn't
shame.
I?
That is a
Yeah.
shame. If you haven't seen the Mary Whitehouse experience, do watch it. It was a huge piece of TV at the
Yeah.
time. It took alternative comedy and propelled it into the mainstream. If you know this already, I apologise. But it was a real turning point for BBC Two and the BBC, I think.
Yeah, it really was. And it was so exciting to work on because I'd worked on all the mainstream kind of comedy entertainment shows with Les Dennis, who's now in Coronation Street, and, you know, at the time was the host of Family Fortunes, which I then went on to work. I feel like my career's gone kind of full circle, really. But there were some amazing, amazing shows to work on, but doing like Alexi Sal and the Mary Whitehouse experience, and then I did early years of Comic Relief when we did lots of sketches that were all written by people like Richard Curtis, really cool times, you know, Bob Hoskins, there he is, come in to do a sketch for Comic Relief. It just was an amazing, amazing time. And although things have changed at the BBC, my memories and the experiences that I got from the BBC. Well, Bob Monkhouse once said to me, "You cannot buy the experience that the BBC has given you. It is amazing, and it's what will make you the producer that I hope you turn out to be." This was in the days when I was an assistant producer. He'd remembered me from being that young girl on Opportunity Knocks that would, you know, go into his dressing room, give him his scripts, you know, go and get his lunch, all those sorts of things. You didn't have runners in those days. So as the production secretary, you were involved in so much more. So, yeah, great memories. And I did a show called Bob's Full House, which was a kind of big go game show that I did with him, that one of the cameramen, we used to record all of the run-throughs and dress rehearsals in the afternoon where Bob didn't do them. He used to rest, so we all used to take a different job. And one of the cameramen recently, who'd kept all the footage, sent me a clip where I was on a revolve coming round as a prize with like a soda stream or something in these fantastic times that we used to have. So yeah, I loved my time at the BBC, and I'm very, very proud of my time there.
And now, just to sort of maybe make it clear here, did you have any clue as to what you were getting into when you joined the BBC and started working on light entertainment? What was the kind of gap between what you thought it would be, what it actually turned out to be? Because these shows, I think you know, we all watch light entertainment shows, right? We watched all the big Saturday night, Sunday night programmes, and they were incredibly slick. But did you have any idea how much hard work goes into making those programmes?
I could see from the start that, you know, these are no 9-to-5 jobs. If a 9-to-5 job is what you were looking for, then, you know, you don't get into a production role of any description. The hours are long. You know, I worked at the BBC, so the pay was quite low. It's only when you come out of the BBC that you realise that you can earn reasonable money working in telly. But it didn't bother me. I was committed. I knew, when I was a production secretary, I knew the route I wanted to go. I didn't want to be a production manager. I didn't want to be there working out schedules and finances. I wanted to be creative. And I spent a long time as a production secretary on many different roles, kind of raw variety performances, all sorts of different things. And then I became the production secretary on Noel's House Party, and I absolutely loved it. Kind of another groundbreaking type of television, and I absolutely knew that I wanted to be a researcher, and I made it my mission. When I was there taking down in shorthand, I can do shorthands, and sometimes I still use it now when I'm trying to rewrite a script. I'd be taking down shorthand for the producer of the show, and then I'd talk to him about my ideas. Have you ever thought about doing this? I've got an idea for a gotcha, and then one of my gotchas actually got made for the series that year, and it was just the most exciting thing. You know, I was the production secretary. I was there to organise everyone else and send back the post and the signed Mr. Blobby pictures and all this sort of stuff, and then I was getting the opportunity to have my idea for a gotcha on the show. It was just amazing, and I thought, that's the job for me, and I am getting one of those jobs next series, and I did.
And so, I mean, how long were you pitching? Was that an applause? Was that applause? Yeah, applause. Let's have some applause. Don't be shy with it, guys. If you want to share your appreciation, please do. And do think of questions as well, because as we're going along, we'll be taking some questions from you if you have anything you want to ask Suzy. With regard to being the researcher on something like Noel's House Party, live TV, Saturday night on the BBC, pulling in millions, silly numbers.
Yeah.
You know,
Huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, bigger than Bake Off today,
yeah.
for example, that big.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to have those ideas kind of filter through? How long did it take for you to kind of get the ear of the producer? Because I'm presuming you didn't, first day you went in there and said, I've got it. I've got this thing for you, and off they went, and they said, yes, Suzy. I mean, how long did it take for you to kind of push at that?
Well, it was always a tough interview process. If you can imagine, when I did Noel's House Party, there were 4 researchers, and there were probably about 84 people that applied for those jobs. They were very, very popular. You know, it was the biggest and best entertainment show of its time. There was Noel's House Party on one side and Blind Date on the other, and then in the mix of all of that, the show that I never got to do, which I always wanted to do, Stars in Their Eyes, but it meant moving to Manchester, and I just wasn't going to do that. But that's one of the shows I feel like I really missed out on not doing. It's totally in my jazz hands DNA. But it's a confidence thing. It's having the confidence to pitch your idea, and you know, that's been with me for the whole of my TV life, is that it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the production secretary with a team full of experienced grown-ups. If you've got an idea, just pitch it. You know, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be knocked back, but they'll be part of that idea. And this is what I talk to my teams about now. There just might be an element of that idea that you go, hang on a minute, I remember when Emily talked about this a few weeks ago. Actually, if we do this with it, but that very stem of the idea has come from you. And I always think it's really important that people are recognised for that and they take ownership of it. Obviously, most things that you develop and that we produce are genuinely a team effort, but the root of the idea has to come from somewhere. So it's having the confidence to do it. That does take time. When you pitch ideas, I'm sure in all of your lives you've pitched ideas before, and 99 times out of 100 you will be knocked back. So you have to grow the thickest skin possible and take the knock back and then bounce back up again and find another way of developing your idea.
I mean, rejection is part of this career,
yeah.
Part of this industry.
Yeah, totally is. But you just have to deal with it. And, you know, you have to grow some balls, and, you know, it can be really upsetting at first. I can remember walking out of so many pitch meetings in a room like, they don't know what they're talking about. This is a really great idea. But what you don't know is the bigger picture. It could be that you've pitched them an idea and they've already got something similar on the slate, or you've pitched an idea with a piece of talent that they don't actually think is for their channel. It can be many, many different reasons why. And I've spoken to ex-commissioners that have said to me, I remember when you came in and you pitched such and such idea, and do you know what, we always thought that was a really, really good idea, not necessarily mine, but could have been from one of our development team, but actually the timing of it wasn't quite right. And we've gone back, you know, you keep all of your ideas archived really well. And someone might say, I remember when you pitched something before, and we'll go back and we'll look at that idea. We did a lottery show a few years ago with Nick Knowles called Break the Safe. And the end game for that was a really smart end game, which was all about counting in your mind, counting down the 30 seconds. And if you pressed your button when you thought the clock had gone to 0, the safe would open and you'd win all the money. That actual end game belonged to a pilot for another series we'd done previously, which was rejected. That game show was rejected, but we knew that end game worked really, really well. So then what we did was we took that end game and we developed the beginning of the show around that end game, and then we got it commissioned. So if you believe in your idea, then it will happen in the end, if it's meant to be.
And it's just sometimes that smallest of details can be what an entire show ends up being built around.
Yeah.
The smallest acorn.
Yeah, definitely. We've just had a series go out on ITV in daytime called Rebound, hosted by a guy called Sean Fletcher, which is basically Pong, that old computer game Pong, or...
Not beer pong.
Well, maybe at the end of the record day there was a bit of beer pong that went on with it. But, or the beep test. You remember when you used to have to do that at school, the beep test, where you were running backwards and forwards? So we developed this quiz, and it's something that I'm really, really proud of for us and our team. We just knew there was something in it. We carried on developing it. We took it to the controller of ITV Daytime. She could see straight away there was something in it. And it looks spectacular because it's got so much LED. The whole screen setup of the show is filled with more LED than they have on the set of Britain's Got Talent. So for us, it looks really sexy for a quiz show in daytime. And we're really, really pleased with that, and we're hopeful for a third series.
You mentioned the National Lottery. Let's go to a clip of one of the programmes you've worked on, and then we'll have a little discussion about that and keep brains whizzing for questions. But yeah, here's a clip of one of the shows Suzy has worked on.
Suzanne Dixon, this for the Jet Set. In which country are the headquarters of Interpol, the world's largest international police organisation? Interpol is based in? For the Jet Set. Coming to the end of the show, we've really got to push you.
Austria.
It's France. You lost out there. The point has gone to Angela. 2-1, Angela, you're back in this. The ball's sitting on 5, up, down to the same.
Lower, please.
Going down. Yes. Right, category.
Film, please.
Okay, can she come back from the dead? Here is the film question. The 5 members of the Parr family, P-A-R-R, are the stars of which 2004 Oscar-winning animated film?
The Incredibles.
Bob Parr, Helen Parr, Violet Dash and Jack Jack, they are the Incredibles, all square at 2 each. Okay, the ball's on 2, up, down to the same. Suzanne.
Up, please. Up.
She's going higher. Yes, you're up to 5. You're not finished yet, your category.
I'll try geography again, please.
Geography again. I suppose if this was tennis, this would be second match point, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Suzanne Dixon, this for the Jet Set. St Mary's is the largest and Tresco the second largest of which group of British islands? St Mary's the largest, Tresco the second largest of which group of British islands? This for the Jet Set. You get this wrong, Angela's off to Rome. You don't know, do you? Which group of British islands? Have a guess, have a go. St Mary's and Tresco. We're coming off air, Susanna.
West Indies.
Scilly Island's what I was looking for. There we go, Angela. See you in Rome. Well done, she's done it again. Second week in a row. So close, Suzanne. You pushed her all the way. Sorry about that. Well done, Angela. She's in Rome next week. We're back here, same time, same place, next Wednesday night for the last in the series. From Jet Set, Doris the Manual. Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.
don't think I trust Andrew to book me a holiday.
Probably not.
Now that looked easy. You got a live link to LA. You got to feed back to the studio. You've got to hit your timeout on the show, which is live, in order to make sure you get to the next programme. That was an easy show to work on, right?
Yeah, that one was easy, right? Looks like it. You can hear Eamon going, "We're running out of time, we're running out of time." And that's because I was down his ear going, "We're running out of time, we're going to crash." And at that time, funny story, but at that time, Match of the Day was hosted by Des Lynam. It had to go on air at 10:30. There was no moving it about, 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes later. So it was crucial that your timings worked for you. That was the first series that I'd ever series produced. So either I'd proved to the BBC that I could do it, or they were mad letting me in the seat to run this live, what was known, in the early terms of interactive quiz show, which meant that we were there in the studio in London, and then each week the winning contestant was at a different location around the world. And also, if they won, they moved on again and again. And in my time, two unfortunate things happened while I was running Jet Set, which was Princess Margaret died and the Queen Mother died, all at the time that we were doing these series. And it kind of makes you make quick decisions and work out what you're going to do. And when the Queen Mother had died, these were both really unfortunate things, but that of course the BBC took our show off air. But because our show was a rolling competition, there was this conversation going on about, well, what are we going to do? We've got to get these contestants out here. We've got the next flight booked to probably take them off to Milan, or from LA to Milan. What do we do? And I was like, we've just got to do the show. We won't transmit the show, but what we'll do is we'll play the show as if it were going out for real, so we could keep the continuing competition going on and on. So that's what we did when, unfortunately, the Queen Mother died. And then when Princess Margaret died, they called me. I will never forget this. I was driving up, and for those of you that have ever been in the multi-storey car park at the BBC, you'll know that you should never be on your mobile phone and driving up a multi-storey car park, which is very curly. But I was on the phone, and they said, right, we're going to give you 20 minutes. Can you make Jet Set work in 20 minutes? And I was like, the draws take 20 minutes. How do we fit the show in? So with my powers of negotiation, I managed to make them give us a 35-minute show, which meant that then I got into the studio and we were like, how do we make the show work in a condensed amount of time? But most importantly, we must give the time to the lottery draws. Somehow we did it. I think I got home that night and it was all a bit of a blur. I think I probably left my car in the car park because I didn't fancy driving down that curly car park again. Probably had a few drinks, because one of the things I will say about live television on a Saturday night is it plays havoc with your social life. I've seen far too many green rooms in far too many studios to care to remember. But you're on such a high when you do a show like that. And for me, I was running this show, which was live, interactive. There was an exec producer there with me, of course, but you're in the chair and you're making all of the decisions. And one of the things I'll never ever forget about great advice from an exec. He's an exec that worked on the music lottery shows that I did. I did Dale's All Stars with Dale Winton. I did the National Lottery Right Stuff, or whatever it was called, with Ian Wright. I did lots of lottery shows. And there was an exec producer who I worked with lots called Peter Restor. Unfortunately, he's died now. And I remember having one of the live shows go out and someone came up to me and just tapped me on the shoulder like 15 seconds before we were going on air and asking me, do you want this or do you want this? It was a prop or something. And I remember looking, thinking, and I just looked at him behind me and he just looked at me and he said, darling, just go with your gut reaction. It will always be right. And I was like, okay, I'll have the blue one, I have the blue one. So we used this particular prop in the show. And then actually, I look back on the show thinking, oh God, had I made the right decision? Actually, it sort of didn't matter. A lot of what we do in telly is subjective, something that you like, I might not like, sorry. Different colours, different things. I've had a conversation at a meeting earlier on where we were talking about a graphic for a show, and there's someone on the team that likes it one colour and the rest of us like it another colour. a lot of it is subjective. If you can get your formats right, then the other bits you'll work them out along the way.
So that was a BBC show there, live, a huge amount riding on it. Let's take a look at an ITV show you worked on, X Factor, Battle of the Stars.
Okay.
If we can go to a clip of that now, please, that'd be great. And we'll take some questions soon if there are any to be had too.
Chris, big shock in the audience tonight. How are you feeling?
I'm quite surprised, actually. No, I've had a good time, though. It's been really good, but...
Well, we know that because take a look at this. These are your highs and lows from the X Factor.
I see tree.
It's literally day by day terror.
He's got something special, Miles.
I want to make that final, so it's full on 110%.
Tell me quick!
I feel like Shane Wall.
I would have expected nothing less.
I thought you were amazing.
Oh, one hell of a love machine, I can tell.
I see friends shaking hands, saying,
I actually think you'd have a hit record with that.
in the avenues and alleyways.
I'm really enjoying it. I'm really having a laugh. But it's nerve-wracking.
Anywhere he chooses, I'm back to where I should belong. 'Cause you can't stand
The best performance of the series so far.
with body love.
The king is in the building.
What a wonderful world.
Thank God you're in this competition.
Oh, Simon Cowell likes you.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the same shirt Louis had on the other night?
Probably.
He does like that blue shirt.
Yeah.
X Factor, Battle of the Stars. Could you possibly elaborate on what sort of show that was like to work on? Because it looked quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work too. The three big things about my time on X Factor Battle of the Stars. I'd taken voluntary redundancy from the BBC. I'd gone out into the big scary world. I thought people only knew me at the BBC, but I knew it was time to move on, and I was excited about making the move. It meant that I was making a show for ITV. I'd never made a show for ITV before. They had these things called commercial breaks, which meant that when you were doing a live show, if you needed an emergency trip to the loo, you could do that. I wasn't used to that at the BBC. I was used to an hour-long live telly. You were in your seat, you had to go, and there was no moving, no getting out of the seat. Couldn't believe that you could do these shows where, you know, you could sort of sit back and collect your thoughts and work out if you were under or over, what you were doing with your time. When you're doing a show at the BBC, the pace of it feels so much faster that there's just no time to catch your breath, which is also really exciting as well. And the third thing for me, it was doing X Factor Battle of the Stars, which we only did one of those, and then that slot was then given over to Britain's Got Talent, which still, you know, runs so successfully now. But that was a stripped live show. We did 8 episodes live every night. It was so tough. I remember it was a really, really exciting time.
8 consecutive nights.
8 consecutive nights, no night off. It was a killer. You had to have your running orders set and ready. Of course, you didn't know which piece of talent was going to go out on a certain night. You had to have different durations for different songs because, you know, if there were less people in the competition, they could sing for longer. But what it gave me was a skill that only I had when I went over and worked in the States, which I know we'll mention in a little bit. I was asked to do a show in the States which was stripped over 4 nights. It was a big, again, singing choir competition called Clash of the Choirs, which we made out of Brooklyn in the 4 nights leading up to Christmas. And there was everybody on the team was like, how on earth do we make this show? And one of the reasons that I think NBC asked me to do it was that I walked in and was like, 4 episodes, please. I'm used to doing 8 episodes. What I wasn't used to was the craziness of the channel at NBC, that when this show was going so well, at least here in the UK, you know, if you are doing a show and they say it's going to be 2 hours, it will be 2 hours. Not over in the States. They changed their minds, and 24 hours before we were doing they commissioned it in a really odd pattern. You know, here we'd commission, 8 lots of 2 hours or whatever it's going to be. Over there, they commissioned the shows with different timings. But because the show was doing so well, they decided they'd add an extra hour on to the live shows, which was ridiculous. It's like, there's nothing recorded. So we were there working through the night, writing. I worked really closely with an exec producer who's worked with me for the last 10 years. We've been to the States and back, to the BBC, to anywhere that will have us making all of these fantastic shows. And I remember us having a kind of little tag team, which was, I'll go back to the hotel and just change out of these clothes. And then when I'm back, then you can go back to the hotel and change out of these clothes, because we were literally writing scripts through the night. We were making VTs out of sort of nothing, but the channel were really, really happy with it because the ratings were so good. They decided the ratings are good, let's give people more of what they want. But I don't think I slept for 36 hours. And I had to have a birthday in between all of that as well. So I'd aged a year, but not really noticed. And until I think I woke up on Christmas Day and thought, oh, I'm 22.
It literally aged you a year working on that show.
No, I had to have a birthday, and then suddenly I was a year older. So there are some. This job means there are some birthdays I don't even remember having. I've got one coming up, but it's going to be a crazy time with delivering shows to ITV. So that will probably pass me by. I sort of don't mind it these days.
But how much notice were you given to produce another extra hour of live?
24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
So in that situation, what qualities do you need to have to be able to make that happen?
Stamina and really great people around you, and the ability to make quick decisions. The show was going out on the day that they told us, oh, we think it's rating so well, we're going to want an extra hour. I can remember sitting in the truck in the States with a laptop on my lap, outputting the show that was going out and doing a running order at the same time. And every time we got to the commercial break, there was no chance for me to go to the loo. There was me shouting at the PA, come in, I've got another part for you. Can you type up this running order? It was really tough, but really, really rewarding. It was fantastic. It was a Christmas choir show. It had really good heart about it, and you just wanted to do it just to deliver the best possible show that you could.
Just to make up for you not having a break during that particular moment, I'll throw to the audience and ask, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Suzy a question at all? Gentleman just in the middle there, I think, in the black and red check shirt.
With the history of entertainment programmes which have been so great, such as Noel's House Party, where do you see the future going of the entertainment programmes now? Well, from now onwards.
I think that's a really good question, and I think if I had the answer to that, I'd probably be phoning in this interview from my yacht in Necker Island or somewhere like that. You just don't know. You just have to take a punt, really. Something that I was talking to Toby about earlier on is we, as well as having our successful daytime quiz with Rebound, which we've had this success with. We did a series earlier on this year called Bang on the Money, which was hosted by Ricky and Melvin, the Kiss DJs, who we have earmarked as new and fantastic and exciting new talent. And ITV were really, really excited about us working with them. We've spent the last 18 months developing up ideas and what we might do with them, how a game show might look in 2016. And I think actually, so we did the pilot of that, and then there was a change of guard at ITV, and we were like, what's going to happen to that? Because often, things that you've done, when somebody new comes in, they want to commission new stuff. But we were really, really lucky that Kevin Nygo decided that he would commission the series, and he really, really believed in us and the fact that we could deliver a good series. We know we delivered a really, really good series. Maybe there were layers of it that, given the opportunity to do again, we would change up. We were also put up against Michael McIntyre's Roadshow. Like, who wants to be on opposite, the success that is Michael McIntyre's show? It is a brilliant show. But like as I keep saying at the moment, someone has to go opposite Strictly. We had to go opposite a big show with Michael McIntyre, and we suffered for that. But what's come of that is that we are developing other ideas with the boys, and the channel is still really excited to work with them. So, you know, we will find something else, whether that's a game show or a dating show or a performance show or a reality show, hidden camera. We don't know yet. And the thing is, I'm not sure that anybody knows, and that's why you see so many shows, so many hits and so many misses. I think there's a lot of new entertainment shows that have gone on air in the last few weeks. Some of them will work and some of them won't, but in a way that's the sort of excitement about it as well. You know, if I could predict it all, then it wouldn't be as exciting. I'd probably be quite rich, but it wouldn't be as exciting.
We're going to have another look at some more of your work. Again, another show which dominated Saturday night schedules, Over the Rainbow. This was massive, and it was a huge deal for the BBC. You mentioned earlier in the Brownies you were singing. Of course, this is what inspired you to put this programme together.
Millions of votes have been counted and verified. I can now announce the result. Sophie and Danielle. For two so young, you've both worked incredibly hard to reach this moment. There have been highs, there have been lows. But has your determination to be Dorothy paid off? For one of you, life will never be the same again. For the other, this adventure is about to come to an end. I can now announce that the winner of Over the Rainbow and the nation's Dorothy is... Danielle!
Yes, well done. Well done. Well done.
Congratulations, Danielle. Sophie. Take a bow. Sophie, and go join your family. All right, there you go. You come with me. Oh! Well done. That's it. Danielle is officially the nation's Dorothy. You're a West End star.
I'm not.
Yes, you are. And this is your moment, Danielle.
And kind of forgotten what Graham Norton looked like without the.
I know,
without
Graham
the beard.
without a beard.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Could you elaborate a little upon how you came to be working on such an integral way on these programmes with Andrew Lloyd Webber? Because that wasn't just that one. There were several, and they were all huge hits.
So think back to when I said about I left the BBC and worked on X Factor Battle of the Stars. So exciting times doing the ITV's biggest entertainment show at that time. And I'd taken that voluntary redundancy from the BBC, and they said, just so you know, we don't operate a revolving door policy, which we were all weirded out by. What the hell does that mean? It actually meant once you've got your redundancy, you have to go. You can't come back anytime soon, which I was really cool about because I wanted to see what life was like outside of the BBC. And what I saw at what was Talkback Thames at the time and working on these big entertainment shows, I really, really liked. But while I was there, I got this phone call to say, yeah, we're doing this Andrew Lloyd Webber show and it needs some more development. We need someone to come and kind of put it together. And I said, oh, well, you can't have me because you don't operate a revolving door policy. So the doors are locked for me. And they were like, no, we want you to come back. And I went back and I took a hold of How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria, which was in its audition stages, but they needed someone to create what the live shows were. And for me, I can absolutely tell you, those shows sort of make me emotional when I look at those clips, because for me, I believe that particularly How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria was career defining for me. It was just such an amazing show to do. It, you know, it allowed me to take all of my brownie qualities, singing and dancing, and inject them into the show. And it was my idea that they wore those funny coloured uniforms, but we weren't sure whether those funny coloured uniforms would work. So we allowed the costume designer £35 a dress. They wore those dresses every week. They did work, and then you see that when we did Joseph and Nancy and Dorothy, you can't see from there, but they all had these different colours, and it helped you identify with the girls as they went along. And I wanted to do, rather than the normal pattern of let's see a VT about someone and let's see them perform and then let's see the judges' comments, I wanted to do this thing which I kept calling compare and contrast. How can we see which one is the right girl to be Maria or the other roles, unless we put them up against each other? And so I introduced this idea of 2 performances at a time. Sometimes they'd sing a different version of the same song, so you've got your idea of like, she's definitely my Maria or he's definitely my Joseph. And I just love those shows. I feel like they were game changers for the BBC. They'd had this fantastic and successful, and still do, dancing show, but they'd never quite got a successful singing show. And I just wanted that to be a part of it. And even though it meant spending lots of time with Andrew Lloyd Webber, we became firm friends, even though, you know, it was difficult at times. You know, this man is a genius and he knows what he wants, but I felt I knew what I want and what was right for a Saturday night. And we the first meeting I had with him, I was telling this story earlier on, he wanted one of the girls to sing Pia Jesu on the show, and I thought, that's not very Saturday night. So
I don't know about your Saturday nights.
well, maybe yours and his. So I just thought, I can't let this one go through. And we were in this big conference room at his office, you know, in his territory. And he was starting to talk about it. And I said, look, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think that works for a Saturday night. And everyone around the table went like this and sort of looked. And I thought, OK, I'm on my own with this one. And he said, do you think not, my darling? My darling is what he always called me. And I just said, I'm sorry, you've brought me in because of what I understand about how we make big, shiny singing entertainment shows. I think further down the line that might work, and we actually did it on Over the Rainbow. But it's not going to work this early on if we want to keep our viewers with us. And he said, OK, if Suzy doesn't think it's going to work, then we won't do it. And I breathed out really loudly, and I remember talking to my mum later that night, and she said, you said no to Andrew Lloyd Webber? Well, you'll be the next one to get the sack. And I stayed, and when I came to Thames, Jay Hunt was still the controller of BBC One. She commissioned the 4th strand, which was finding Dorothy for Over the Rainbow. And I'd sort of left, you know, I'd hung up my musical theatre shoes and was not going back. And he said, I'll only do it if I can do it with Suzy. So it was a real coup for me and for the exec male that I work with, and for Thames, that the show came to us at Thames. And that was the last one that we made. And so that's why they have really fond memories for me, because it also initially took me to the States to make, I did a version out there for NBC again called Grease, You're the One That I Want, which was Finding Danny and Sandy for the Broadway version of Grease. There was one that was done here actually by Talkback Thames while we were doing Joseph. So it's just sort of ironic that now I work at Thames, but at the time we were in competition with them. But I love those shows, and what they offered was a real and genuine change of life with the prize. Those girls and boys that won, or even the ones that didn't win, have fantastic jobs in the West End or around the world, or, you know, Lee is in Casualty still, I think. So it's just great to do a show where, you know, it isn't just a record contract, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. those shows genuinely have changed people's lives, and it's a great feeling.
I was going to ask you, I'll ask you something in a moment about the way that you approach sort of viewing shows, but we're going to go to another clip now of a programme which is just about to start production again. You're just about to have a prolonged date with Paddy McGuinness down in Kent. Take Me Out, 9th series coming up. Yep. You've all seen Take Me Out, yes?
You can lights. Say no if you like.
Yeah, I mean, no likey, no light. I mean, yeah. So let's have a look at Take Me Out, and then talk a little bit about that and the process of coming together to put all those little ideas and how it makes it work for the viewer.
Go and have a bit of a chat. Lucy, why's your light on?
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, how's it going? Oh, she put a Y on the end.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to know why? Because he's my ex-boyfriend.
Take me up, it's all a dream. Oh, leave me here, one of the two, that's okay. What the... Oh, you never said anything! What was I going to do? You could have gone, hey, Paddy, that's my ex-girlfriend. You've not said a word! Hey, but Lucy, you've kept your light on.
He is a beautiful person from head to toe, inside and out.
Thank you. I tell you what, it's an emotional night tonight, let me tell you.
Pretty heavy.
Pretty heavy. She keeps her lights on.
I wouldn't want to upset you again.
Did you dump him or something, or... Oh. Madam, give me an hug. Oh.
I mean, how much were you enjoying that up in the gallery when that was taking place in front of you?
I get asked, the reason I wanted to show you that clip from Take Me Out is I get asked so many times, did you know? And genuinely, we did not have a clue.
Neither of them had said.
Well, neither of them knew. So, you know, the girls are kept very separate from the boys are kept very separate from the girls. No one knows who's on the show. And they'd had a breakup where, you know, they weren't speaking anymore. So there was no reason why they would have told each other that they'd applied to do this dating show. Genuinely, we had no idea. And the reason I can honestly tell you is we had no idea is because if we knew, we wouldn't have put her on the very first show. This was show 6. And there was you know, she was a hot-looking girl with plenty to say. She's a fire eater. She was really, really sassy. If we'd have known that Nick was coming down the line on one of the later shows, we would have kept her and put her in the lineup later, knowing that we were going to do this surprise. We had no idea, even to the point where Paddy said, can we stop the recording? And then he was like, Suze, did you know? Did you know? And I was like, if I knew, do you think I would have kept that a secret? I had no idea. It was unbelievable. And in case you didn't see it, she did keep a light on for him and he chose her and they went out on a date. Yeah, and we followed the whole story. There's no happy ending, I'm afraid. There's no happy ending.
Romantics on the right over here, though, right?
Sorry.
So it was interesting you mentioned just before that about putting all the contestants in the same dresses on the over the rainbow, whatever. It's the details which make these big shows.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Is it the tiny things that keep people hooked, that keep people interested, as opposed to the big glitzy sort of moments that the programmes have?
I think it's both. We have a kind of our statement on our team, which is the retail's in the detail, and it's thinking about those smaller things as well as those big glitzy things. That make all of the difference. You know, there's quite a big team that are back in the office now making, prepping for Take Me Out. There are girls that have been called and given the most exciting call of their lives, that, yeah, you know, you're in the starting lineup, you're going to be on. And we think very carefully about the lineup of all those girls. We think about the boys that are coming down the lift. There was a team that flew to the Isle of Fernandos. Yes, it does exist. Yesterday, that are working on prepping the date. So when they go out there, and it's run like a military operation. But what I love about Take Me Out, of course, I love all my shows. You've got to, is that it's like an entertainment soap opera. So Lucy, that girl, had been a real character for the first 6 shows. So the viewers were rooting for her, and even they were stunned what was happening there. So, and that's what I love about Take Me Out. You're rooting for girls. If they don't get picked, you're disappointed for them. But actually you tune in the following week and you're like, yeah, there's Lucy again. And you really, really want them to get dates. And last year we had Millie on, who could clap with the cheeks of her bottom, and you know, they come along with all of their fantastic talents. She ended up becoming a real YouTube phenomenon, and was on, you know, Nick Grimshaw's radio show, and all of a sudden they become sort of famous in their own rights. And we've got 1 or 2 others, which I won't spoil it for you, but lined up for this series.
Now she could do the clapometer show.
She certainly could. Yeah, I'm going to write this down.
I mean, just thinking. I mean, but Take Me Out became so big, and you, like we sort of said a moment about watching it, you probably take part in it socially as well when you're watching, you're getting involved, commenting. Shows like Take Me Out sometimes reach a point where they are large enough to be able to spawn a satellite programme, which can then pick up, because people are that curious, they're that interested. And we have a clip now from The Gossip, the spin-off show. Just before we run it very quickly, when was the decision made and why to put that satellite show together?
So the history of that is we had a commissioner called John K. Cooper, and he said, the one thing I feel, he'd been a producer on Blind Date back in the day, so he was to be listened to and totally admired for his experience and ideas. He said, the one thing I feel like Take Me Out misses is, do you remember on Blind Date, they'd come back the following week and they'd do the thing called the bish bash, which was basically on the sofa, you and I going, well, I didn't like him because, you know, he licks his knife or whatever, those sorts of things. And I always believed that we weren't closing down Take Me Out in the way that we could. So we pitched a switchover show to the controller of ITV2 at the time, and they weren't sure how, this was way back with the first series of Take Me Out, and they weren't sure how Take Me Out was going to land, you know, new show, what was going to happen with it, and they weren't prepared to take the risk. So I went to the current CEO of Fremantle at the time, Fremantle UK, and I said, I really believe in this. I think they're missing a trick. We need to be able to demonstrate to them that we can do it. And she very kindly gave me the money to make an online version of what Take Me Out The Gossip became in its early days. And it was getting loads of hits, people were talking about it, because it was giving the conclusion, the close down to all of the stories. So the following year, so we were now at the 3rd series of Take Me Out, so I went back into ITV, new controller of ITV2, who was a woman, and I don't know whether that made a difference, and she was like, just tell me, I want to know the gossip, I want to know the gossip, did they, didn't they? And I just thought, I know you're going to go for this. And I really believed in it, the team that were with me really believed in it, and they said, okay, let's go for it. So we did it. We did it as a studio-based show originally, but we did a few series, and I just thought, I just don't think that this is immediate enough. We're not getting the reactions straight away in the way that we need them. And yes, we can close down the stories by doing a reunion. So I went back in and I said, when you recommission it next time, I've got a different idea of the way that we can do it, which is the way that we do it now.
And let's take a look.
OK. We'll leave that for now and get back to Harry, who has finally been joined by Amy. And she looks like she's going to sort this out once and for all.
Why are you sat over here? Why are you not sat with us?
Who's us?
I can't remember their names.
Paul and David. It's supposed to be like on a date and it just doesn't really feel like it.
Yeah, I know that, but when you're saying to me, like, do you want to kiss? Right. That was awkward. Like, I wouldn't do something that I didn't want to do.
No, but then just say that. Don't,
I didn't say that, though.
Perhaps I'm jealous of the fact you left flights with Paul. That's probably it. That's probably it.
I think you're just thinking into it way too much. You just need to relax. Like, now you're making it intense. You just need to relax.
But at the same time, we've not been together tonight.
This is too intense for me. This is like...
Yeah, but Amy, but like...
This is like, the conversation is too much.
At the same time, I don't think we're taking it seriously enough.
Guys get easily attached to me, and I don't know why.
So as the evening draws to a close, the events of the night all just seem to get a bit too much for Harry.
Yeah, I just feel a bit silly, really. I don't know, I just kind of, I really like the girl, but it just seems like she just doesn't feel the same way, so... I don't know if I'm ever going to see her again, so...
Wow.
We're running out of time, so I'll try and fit one question, then a couple from the audience, if that's okay. Just about that, it has to, the way it's filmed, it sort of merges reality-style documentary making with the catch-up process. I mean, it's a sophisticated piece of television, but people probably don't necessarily see that when they first see it.
I think what's great about the gossip and the way we shoot it is it's very different from anything else that I've spoken to you about today. It's very different from, you know, Thames and certainly shows that I've done previously. We're known for our big, shiny jazz hands entertainment shows. And this is sort of breakout for us. You know, there are other companies that do this. But I think we've found a way to do it that's, I hope you didn't find that an uncomfortable watch. It was the reality of what happened. And the positive outcome of that is when that show went out, Harry got offered so many dates from girls online, you know, so there was a real happy ending to that story. It didn't work out with the contestant, but a lot of good came from that. And now we're in touch with him now because, of course, you know, I wanted to make sure he was all right and he felt comfortable about it. You know, we've got a real duty of care for all of the contestants that we deal with, and he was like, well, yeah, it's fine, you know, and you want to see all the girls now I'm being asked out by, and, you know, he's the king of Essex for a couple of weeks, so it turned out to be fine for him.
I remember that coronation, yeah. Time for, I think, for a couple of quick questions. Who would like to ask Suzy a question? Okay, I'm going to go to that individual with the black top sweater there, just there in the middle of that row, be great there. And I think this gentleman here down the front row as well, please, if that's okay. If we can take more questions, we will try to fit them in, I promise you. If the young lady, yes.
For a film and television production student who's very interested in the entertainment business, how would you, what would you say is the best way in the business and to get your, you know, foot on the door?
I get asked this question all of the time. We have a lot of people contact us. There are, in the big companies, definitely, there are talent managers that we work with. We work with a talent manager at Fremantle UK, and I know that she works with a network of other people across the other big companies. I mean, in its basic way, I always say, look at the end of the credits, look at the end board, go onto the website and find those people that make those shows. You know, if you take a punt and you email me or any other exec or producer, you know, if there's something about what you say that jumps out, then that can be quite interesting. The best way is to try and get work experience. We've had a boy that did work experience with us. He was a graduate, and he came and did some work experience with us, and he was fantastic. He was a really bright boy. He was really energetic. He was smart. He just got it. He's now, and that was in the summer last year, We then gave him a job as a runner on the first series of Rebound that we were doing, and it was clear how smart he was. So then he became a runner on Take Me Out, and then when we did the show with Ricky and Melvin earlier this year, he was a real boy's boy. He worked really well with Ricky and Melvin. They liked him, but he knew what his role was within the show. And then we were so impressed with him that we gave him a junior researcher's role on Rebound. He was responsible for creating lots of the questions and the picture rounds. And now he's one of the boys' researchers on Take Me Out, and is then going on to do Love Island. So he just kept firing off emails to people. And of course it's really hard because there are thousands of people that want to get in. But you just got to keep knocking on those doors. The more work experience you can get, the better. We've had people be in right place, right time. You'll do a work experience job and then we'll say, well, what are you going on to do next? Oh, I don't know. And we'll know that in a month's time we've got a production starting, and we'll offer people runners' roles on them. So honestly, I know it's really hard, but you've just got to keep on going. Send your CV. Make sure you spell people's names right. It's one of my real bugbears. I just think, well, if you've managed to type in my name and got my email right, how comes you've completely got my name wrong when you're writing to me? It's just things like that, because if we're going to take you on, we want to know that you're going to best represent the shows. And if you're corresponding with members of the public, we want you to be able to correspond to them in a certain way that looks good, that represents the shows, that your spelling is correct and all of this type of thing. So you just keep going, and your determination will get you there. Remember all the post-production houses as well, they have lots of runners. Then when you're there and you're running, it's an opportunity to meet producers who are in cutting shows. And it's having the confidence to do it. Go up and speak to people. I love it when runners come and knock on my door and ask for advice. And 9 times out of 10, they know that I haven't got an hour to give them. But actually, it's that sitting down and having those chats. I try, when I've got the time, to take the runners out for lunch as and when I can, just to get to know people, and also for them to know that I'm a human being too, and I had to start somewhere, and I worked with some scary grown-up producers at the BBC, but you know, without them I wouldn't be here now. So you've just got to keep pushing down those doors.
Thank you very much. And just flying in under the radar, sir.
Hello. I was wondering, when it comes to directing or sort of coordinating television, what do you think the most vital skill is for that kind of role?
Well, they're 2 very different roles, neither of which I've done. Although, in my role as a producer, you have to have a good vision for what you think a show is going to look like. So I'd say if you want to do directing, again, our entertainment directors can come from, you know, the old school multi-stranded programmes where you've got 6 or 8 cameras or more than that. Or they might have come from what we call a PSC shoot. I'm sure lots of you guys have done those, where you'd either go out with a cameraman or self-shooting. Self-shooting is the way forward. Lots of what we do on The Gossip is self-shooting, because it's a show made for a digital channel and the budgets are smaller.
Thank you very much. And just finally, sir, there, if there was a microphone available to pass to this chap, or you can shout. I mean, we can hear you, I think. Oh, sorry for everyone.
Just wait for the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just one final question. You've worked on loads of shows in your career, loads of exciting experiences. What would you say is your favourite show you've worked on, and maybe what's your best experience you've had on any particular show?
Oh God, Helen's going to kill me. I haven't really got that long. That's really difficult. I'd say I'd love bringing back dating again. After Blind Date, there was, you know, who's going to be able to make a successful dating show again? And we've done it, and we're about to go into our 9th series. But of course, for me, all of those Andrew Lloyd Webber shows I'm really, really proud of those, because they're jazz hands, they're singing and dancing. They're what I do, going back to the story about being in the Brownies right at the beginning, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Suzy, for your time this afternoon. Thank you for being so honest and candid, and for imparting some really fantastic information. I don't think you often hear from people, you know, particularly being candid about what it does take to get to where you are now. And congratulations with the next run of Take Me Out. ladies and gentlemen, Suzy Lamb, Head of Entertainment. Thank you.